Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, back again to bring you our quick guide to Atal'dazar for 10.2 Season 3. Starting it off, this dungeon no longer has snap spots. If you played in BFA, where the tank was able to get into these positions, where everything would just spawn on him and it'd be super easy and safe, doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't really work. The way that it works now is that there are safe spots, or what people might call like reverse snapping, that you're able to avoid specific mechanics or avoid some damage from Saurids and Juggernauts by having ranged players or even the entire party standing in these safe spots. So for the first pull, if you go down the left side as you historically do and grab all these mobs together, you're going to have these Juggernaut mobs. To make sure they don't charge out of the group, just have one player step up onto this railing next to this set of stairs. I prefer being up on the top part first in case a fiery enchant goes off. You can drop down to the lower level and still be safe. But just making sure that player is out there at this no path available zone will mean that the Juggernauts are not going to be able to charge you at all, and they're going to stay in melee to get cleaved. When you go into Priestess Alunza's room, there's a brazier at the top of the stairs when you get to that final level of her boss room. You have to jump on the left side of the brazier to get on top of it, and then you're in the no path available zone. And once again, Juggernauts are not going to be able to charge you. Keep in mind, they will charge mirror images, pets, summons, guardians, things like that, if they're not in melee. So if you have anything that like spawns by your location as a ranged player, like a pet that spawns next to you or something, it could charge that and kill you as a result. The Confessor mob is a massive priority target you need to kill immediately because it casts Bwansambi's Pact, which spawns this massive golden orb which prevents all enemies from being crowd controlled. This will then mean that augurs will be casting wildfires like crazy, which are debuffing players that can be dispelled but deal massive amounts of damage. And they also empower the Juggernauts with fiery enchant, spawning fire pools all over the room on all players and causing the Juggernaut to cleave. One mob that was often skipped in BFA was the Dazar'lar Colossus. This guy is going to stack up and increase his damage for every soul that he consumes for every mob that's killed around him. Keep in mind, this effect can be purged, so if you have one available, you should always spec into it in this dungeon, but each purge only removes one stack. It's still worth purging because his Fixate Beam is going to deal colossal amounts of damage and can very easily kill a player at high levels. The first boss, Priestess Alunza, is quite easy. She'll summon these Spirits of Gold masks that you can crowd control, or you can of course just kill outright. They're going to try to steal these blood puddles that she spawns. You're going to want to have each player stand in those puddles, and it's a good use of the new ping system, so that you can stand in those puddles when she reaches full energy and she tries to cast Transfusion to heal herself. If you're standing in the blood puddles, she'll then be dealing damage to herself as a result. There's one bit of gold that flies out onto a random player that you need to dispel, and the boss will empower her melee strikes that can be purged. And otherwise, this fight is quite easy. Grab the blood puddles, stack up for healing, and you'll be good to go. Once clearing the first boss, you're going to be going to the bottom of the stairs, and basically alongside the railing of the bridge, you're going to be getting into another of these safe spots. Now, this safe spot for Saurids is very difficult for melee players, because if the tank is the only one present, all the Saurids will just jump on the tank, which is good, but it's difficult for melee players to actually reach them. So if you're very tanky, you might, as a melee, just be able to stand in it and take the strikes from the Saurids, but you definitely want to make sure that ranged players are standing up top because the Saurids do deal splash damage as well. So if you have a melee that really wants to get in there, might be worth like dropping Pain Sup or an external onto them while they run in, and then you stand in a safe spot and just heal as a result. Keep that in mind that melee are going to get railed by Saurids. Sometimes you can bring them close enough back to the safe spot that melee players can hit most of the mobs, but it's really unfavorable and annoying for them. The next boss is going to be Razan. Usually you go and clear out a lot of mobs by the bridge, and then you jump down and fight off Razan with a couple of the pterodactyls that have some casts that are easy to interrupt. Razan does put out a massive tank bleed that can be cauterized by evokers, so it's great to be able to remove that, or they'll need externals. You'll then want to line of sight his fear, and then right after the fear cast goes out, have two players, doesn't matter who they are, they need to be out of melee range, and one of them will be receiving the fixate of the pursuit. On PTR, anybody can use a shadow meld to be able to stop the pursuit from happening. I'm not sure if that's going to be able to go live, but I do know that if you sub to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to support more content just like this, so be sure to do so. When you're on your way up to Vol'kaal's room, keep in mind the undead mobs are going to channel these shields that need to be stunned or otherwise crowd controlled, as they're going to reduce everybody's damage. The path up to Vol'kaal's room does have some stalkers that are stealthed around the room. You can get them out with flares or just having your tank really walk into them. Keep in mind they deal a lot of damage from their fan and knives mechanic, and once you get to the top top of Vol'kaal's room, there's going to be 2 casters and an honor guard blocking your path. If you go to the left of those mobs, you can use Cage, you could use Para, Mind Soothe, and Ring of Peace to be able to knock it away. You could use Sap to crowd control it, and then you'll be able to skip past that. They're not great percent, and they're honestly just challenging mobs to deal with the honor guard and the casters at the same time, so skipping them is always going to be preferred. When fighting up against Vol'kaal, you'll need to kill all the totems at the same time before they cast again and try to heal themselves. The boss is going to cast a disease dispel, which will stack. You need to make sure you just interrupt that as fast as you possibly can. And then once all the totems are dead, you want to make sure you're not tightly stacked, but like closely moving together so that you're all dropping puddles in the same area. And then you're quickly going to be able to move out of them. If you're standing in puddles too long, you will take very, very large amounts of damage. So watch out for that. The final boss is Yasma, and you're going to want to start with the boss almost in like this cubby area that kind of leads into King's Rest. You always want to make sure that all DPS and healers are stacked together as you're dropping off the Soul Rend mechanic. It's going to fire a bolt at every player except for the tank. Is going to deal very heavy damage, and you're going to continue taking damage as the ads are being DPS'd. These ads can be knocked back, stunned, fully crowd controlled, and you want to make sure that you are cleaving and killing them down as rapidly as you possibly can, because if they hit the boss, they're going to start pulsing damage for an incredibly long period of time, and you're probably just going to wipe. You're also going to have spiders periodically spawning around the room. Some of them are random, but most of them are going to spawn around your allies. So you want to make sure you're staying close to the boss, especially when she's going to be spawning more spiders. And then those spiders are going to fixate on random players, charge towards them for a brief period, and then go inactive once again. Let's say this north side of the room is where you want to start at, going into the cubby, dropping off the first Soul Rend, DPSing it down. Then as new ads spawn and the old ones are fixating you, you want to make sure you gain extra space and moving around the edges of the room. Not soaking spiders, not having your tank soak them because the debuff, the void zones last for a very long period of time, but you want to wait and stay close to the boss until the Soul Rend mechanic comes out. Then give yourself a good distance from the boss to have everybody stacked together, drop all of their ads at the same position, cleave and kill all of them down, and then continue moving around the room. If you do this, all the spiders are going to be in about the same locations at all times, and you'll always be able to move forward ahead of the boss and ahead of the spiders to drop off your ads, and that way your melee or ranged players aren't running into a random spider as they're killing off the ads that they have then spawned. You're going to have one interrupt onto the tank and a small tank buster to contend with, but otherwise this boss is pure execution. If you guys enjoyed these quick tips and tricks, make sure to subscribe to the channel and be sure to check out our Patreon for more. We're also going to be having some 1-minute boss tips that you can check out here and on TikTok. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all next time.